Thank you all for being here. I truly appreciate it. We are here today to basically share developments on our ongoing efforts to address the opioid crisis, not only in the state of New York, but all across our great nation. The actions we are announcing today were taken to make sure that those who fuel the opioid crisis are held accountable for the destruction that they have caused. Since filing the nation's most comprehensive lawsuits against drug manufacturers and individuals and corporations for this crisis, my office has secured over $3 billion for the state of New York. And we've ensured that those dollars are going to support efforts to save lives and stop the spread of opioid addiction, particularly in the state of New York. And we have secured settlements from some of the nation's largest pharmacies and drug companies because of their role in distributing and marketing opioids. But the Sackler family and their company Purdue, who helped spark the opioid crisis decades ago, have for years avoided accountability for the immense cause that they have caused. All of the victims, all of the loved ones who have died, all of those who are in the throes of addiction right now. But that ends today. My office, with the assistance of a nationwide bipartisan coalition of attorneys general, local law enforcement, affected individuals, and others, have secured a settlement in principle that will deliver $7.4 billion to address the opioid crisis. That's $7.4 billion. Thank you. And this will help communities heal from the devastating losses wrought by addiction. And this will support treatment and recovery programs across New York and the nation. This will engage in, we will provide educational programs to talk about the dangers of drug addiction, recovery beds, a wide range of sources will be funded as a result of this historic settlement. And this will get those suffering the help that they need so that we can save lives. And this hopefully will support those who carry the pain of losing their lost ones. And the Sacklers will personally pay up to $6.5 billion, and an additional $900 million will come from Purdue, the company that they started. Importantly, a significant amount of the funds will come in the first few years. The Sacklers must pay $1.5 billion immediately on the day the settlement goes into effect, and we anticipate that the settlement will go into effect towards the end of this year. We have some loose ends to tie up. And a year later, they must pay $500 million with an additional $500 million in the second year and $400 million in the third year. It is by far the single largest settlement my office has secured as we have pursued those responsible for sparking waves of addiction and death and destruction all throughout the state of New York. And it represents justice for untold victims who suffered because the Sacklers basically put profits over people. People like Sage Early of Cazenovia, who was prescribed opioids by her dentist after she got her wisdom teeth removed. Her prescription led to an addiction, and when her pills ran out, she sought heroin on the street. And after years she committed to recovery. She rekindled her passions for dance, music, and art, and she reconnected with her mother and child. But after a friend died from an overdose, Sage relapsed. Knowing she needed help, she booked herself into a treatment facility in California, but Sage never made it. She died in a bathroom stall at the Syracuse airport terminal of an overdose with her boarding pass in her hand. There's also the case of Michael Israel, who I met in Buffalo. He too died as a result of a doctor who gave him a pill for an illness. And he shot himself, killed himself. And there's an organization named in his honor called Saving Michaels in Buffalo, and I have visited that organization. I know that every community in New York has stories like Sage and Michael, and for decades the Sacklers recklessly marketed their opioid products without concern for the law, their safety, or the safety of others. And they operated a vast scheme to flood the market with their product using deceptive marketing tools, even though they knew their drugs were highly addicted and could be abused. They basically created the playbook for marketing opioids, misleading both experts and the wider public about the risks of their product. And they turned a blind eye to those who ran pill mills, distributing opioids with little concern for the law or for the safety of their consumers. The settlement puts an end to the Sackler's opioid business, their drug business, their legal drug business. And they will no longer have a role in Purdue, the company they controlled for decades. And they will be banned from selling opioids in the United States. And the settlement, once the settlement is finalized, the Sacklers will pay what they owe over 15 years, ensuring communities can create long-term plans to fight opioid crisis. And here in the great state of New York, we expect to receive $250 million from that settlement. And in New York, where we have seen opioid overdose deaths decline in recent years, we know these funds are working, but they must be delivered faster. And so this message really is to the state of New York and specifically to the agency, which is responsible for distributing these funds. We have to make sure that there's more efficiency and transparency and that these funds are not tied up in bureaucracy. There are organizations that are suffering and organizations that desperately need these resources. And so I would hope that they would continue to expedite the funds to organizations who are on the ground, who are battling each and every day the scourge of opioid abuse. Let me close by saying our work is far from over. My office is continuing to pursue the pharmaceutical companies, distributors, and other corporations that have fueled the opioid crisis. And we will continue to secure more funding for our great state and to support programs in every county that get New Yorkers the help that they need and prevent the abuse of addiction. I want to thank all of the members of my staff who worked on this tirelessly day and night, seek to secure justice for the people of the state of New York. I first want to begin with our first Deputy Attorney General. I want to thank Jennifer Levy. I also want to thank for his incredible work, Special Counsel David Nachman, who came back to the office again to focus on opioids. I want to thank him for his expertise and all of the work that he dedicated to reaching this point. Of course, Special Advisor and Special Counsel Umair Khan, who has consistently advised me, as well as Special Counsel Andrew Amir, Assistant Attorney General Gina Bull, Special Counsel for Complex Litigation Colleen Faherty, Senior Advisor to the Criminal Division Gary Fishman, Civil Recoveries Section Chief Martin Mooney, Assistant Attorney General Noah Pop, Assistant Attorney General Robert Rock, Assistant Attorney General Jennifer Simkovich, Assistant Attorney General Eva Wooden, Director of Research and Analytics Victoria Khan, Data Scientist Ken Morales, Data Scientist Blake Ruby, and Legal Support Analyst Libya Hassan. All of them, again, lost so many sleepless nights, times with their family. They were on notice 24 hours. They've advised me repeatedly, kept me up to date with respect to the litigation, and I truly, truly, truly want to thank them for their steadfast dedication to justice for everyone harmed by the opioid epidemic. And now I'd like to introduce to you some wonderful individuals who have joined us here today who were part of this settlement, individuals who have been affected by the opioid crisis. I want you to hear their stories. These are the individuals who basically represent the recovery, as well as all of those who have struggled. I first want to welcome Cheryl Rouer, a mother from Massachusetts, who is one of the national leaders for individuals bringing cases against Purdue and Sacklers. She basically is the hunter. That's what I call her. She hunted them down, and she refused to give up in pursuing justice. In 2011, her son, Corey, passed away from an opioid overdose. She channeled her grief into a new organization, Team Sharing, a support group for parents like herself. And in 2021, Cheryl tragically lost another son, Sean, to addiction. She is tireless, and she's a nationally recognized advocate. And it is a true honor to be with her today and to meet her and to thank her for all of her efforts, who would not have had a settlement, but for her dogged persistence to reach this point. And so at this point in time, I welcome Cheryl to the podium. Cheryl.
Good afternoon. My name is Cheryl Jouer, and I am the founder of a nonprofit organization called Team Sharing. Team Sharing is an organization that I formed after losing my son Corey to an opioid overdose February 24th, 2011, almost 14 years ago. We are a peer-led grief support organization of parents who have all lost a child from addiction, with over 5,000 members all across the states, including New York. In August of 2018, before Purdue even filed for bankruptcy, I led a demonstration in front of Purdue's offices in Stamford, Connecticut, and tried to deliver a personal message to their board and management. It fell on deaf ears. When Purdue filed for bankruptcy more than 2,000 days ago, I filed a complaint against Purdue for the loss of my son. I applied for and was chosen to sit on the official unsecured creditors committee and have been a part of that committee since September 26, 2019. On June 25th, 2021, 3.5 years ago, in the midst of this case, I lost my second son, Sean, also to an overdose. I buried him in the midst of an ongoing mediation at this time. I truly hope that no one ever has to feel the devastation I have felt in losing 2 of my 3 children. 3 years ago, I knew firsthand how much we needed the settlement to be consummated, how desperately we needed to get the money out to our states, cities, municipalities, so we could begin what we had set out to do, saving lives, in hopes not one more mother would know the pain of child loss. And for the victims, whose loss and heartbreak that could never be put into words. As you all know, the old settlement was appealed again and again by our federal government, all the way to the Supreme Court, who on June 25th, 2024, and with a 4-5 vote, decided the plan could not go effective. Hundreds of millions of dollars that would have gone to victims was stuck, and we had to go back to square one. Since that day, many people immediately began working, and today we are gathered here to announce a new deal in place, one that will include providing the victims with hundreds of millions of dollars, even more than the original deal. But this will only happen if the parties that stood in the way the last time will not do so again. Although no amount of money will bring our children back, I stand here today for the victims in support of this new settlement. I want to thank all those involved in the past 5.5 years who worked so tirelessly to get us to this point. And I especially want to thank my friend Kara, who you will hear from shortly, who has stuck through it all with me over the last 5 years. And lastly, thank you to Attorney General Letitia James for welcoming me here today. I hope and pray today that we can finish what we started in that demonstration at Purdue almost 7 years ago, and that finally our voices will be heard. And to God be all the glory. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And now we're going to introduce her good friend, Kara Trainer, a Michigan mother, who, along with Cheryl, is another national leader for individuals who have brought cases against Purdue and the Sacklers. As you will hear, Kara overcame her own opioid addiction and is now 17 years free from illegal opioids. Today, she works with community health programs in her home state to deliver treatment and resources to those struggling with substance use disorder. And we are honored to have her share a few words with all of us. Kara?
First of all, I would like to thank Attorney General James for inviting me to speak. It's an honor and it's a privilege to be here today. My name is Kara Trainer. I'm a person in long-term recovery from opiate use disorder. This upcoming summer, I will celebrate 17 years free from illicit drug use and 7 years since any opioid has been in my system. That is who I am now. But 23 years ago, I was a 21-year-old with a simple back injury that went to her primary care and was given a prescription for Oxycontin. I was not given any education or information about how addictive and powerful that opioid was. I never knew that for the next 23 years, my life, everything I did would be affected by the small action of taking a pill. Developing opiate use disorder, the struggle to get out of addiction, having children that were born opioid dependent, my journey through recovery, my jobs in the field of substance abuse disorder recovery, and my seat on the Unsecured Creditors Committee for the bankruptcy of Purdue Pharma. And filing a claim against Purdue in that bankruptcy case. Everything in my life is tied to the actions of a company and a family that put profits over human lives. But I was the lucky one. I survived. So many in my generation who were prescribed Oxycontin never got a chance to grow old. Those people left behind families, children, parents, friends, coworkers, and communities. For so many years, I was angry. For so many years, I felt helpless. I vowed, if given a chance, to bring justice to not only my children for what they endured, but for all those that have suffered in the opioid crisis. When the opportunity rose in 2019 to bring my claim and be active in litigation against Purdue and the Sackler family, I took it. When the bankruptcy was announced, I was chosen to be part of the official Unsecured Creditors Committee. I took an oath to the United States trustee that I could uphold a fiduciary duty to those who, like me, had their lives destroyed by this company and by that family. I took this position very seriously, and I still do. More than 3 years ago, we reached a settlement. Reaching a settlement at that time meant closure for the families and financial benefits that could symbolize a measure of accountability, whereas before, grieving loved ones, survivors, and children born opiate dependent felt as if they were forgotten and invisible. As you all know, creditors voted and we thought it was done. Then the legal battle began. Watching individuals that had never ever experienced the grief of losing a child or watching an infant go through opiate withdrawal decided to take away our closure and ignore our voices. It was devastating to me. And the loss at the Supreme Court, it took something out of me that I don't know that I can rebuild. But we went back to the table in mediation and tried again. And with the work of many, many people, including the work of the New York Attorney General Office, we have succeeded. A new plan is going to give more millions to the victims than the past plan. For me, I often work 60-hour work weeks, working with individuals struggling with chaotic use or substance abuse disorder. For the past 4 years, I've worked within 2 different hospitals with an opioid overdose response program. And for the past 6 months, with a recovery management program that's community-based. I have lost count of the people that have said they started with prescribed opioids in the 2000s, but now are chronically unhoused, dealing with medical issues, and walking the line of having potential fatal overdose every single day of their lives. And I think about what's justice to them, funding for the programs that will keep them alive, or another extensive legal battle where the only winners are the attorneys. All I see at the end of the day is the invisible individuals that will never see their voices heard. I see those in my generation that died because they were given that pill. I carry those voices with me. My people cannot wait another 5 years to go by while the courts decide our fate. We were the ones that suffered the most. I believe in the new agreement and the work that many, including General James, had done. And I'm hoping that the entities that denied our settlement last time can take another look at what you took away from the people that have had their lives destroyed. And please do not do it again.
Next, let's welcome my friend Luke Nasta. He's the president and CEO of Camelot Counseling. Camelot is the largest drug treatment program on Staten Island and has served New Yorkers for over 50 years. Luke is an expert in substance abuse treatment, and we are honored and thrilled to have him speak to us today. Luke?
Thank you, Attorney General. Staten Island. So Staten Island is what they call the forgotten borough. However, when the pill epidemic hit, that is the prescription drug epidemic, Staten Island was considered the epicenter of it. And as a matter of fact, National Geographic did a special and called it Heroin Island. And it still ranks second in ratio of population and overdose deaths. Of course, you know that the overdose deaths are the tip of the iceberg. That is, it's an indication of just how proliferated our society is with recreational drug use. It is, in fact, one of the ways that we recreate. The numbers that we see, I believe it was over 5,000 deaths in New York last year, 2023. Don't believe those numbers. Those numbers are far short of what they actually are. And again, they represent a widespread proliferation of recreational drug use. I bet you if we went around this room and had casual conversation to a person, we would say somebody in our family has succumbed to it, maybe not overdosed, but is dependent upon pharmaceutical drugs or illicit drugs. It may have started with the pharmaceutical and led to the illicit drugs, but that's how commonplace it is. Now, I want to, first of all, Attorney General. Attorney General James, when she was the public advocate for New York City, came to Staten Island unsolicited, met with me and said, I want to understand more about this drug problem. And you have an extensive background, many years. As a matter of fact, I'm a recovered heroin addict from when I was a teenager. And I've been with Camelot for 49 years. She said, I want to get some insight. I want to understand what's going on here and what I can do in my position as a public advocacy officer for New York City. So her interest predates her becoming the Attorney General. This isn't grandstanding. This is a person who understands on a grassroots level just how devastating the drug problem, the recreational drug problem is to our society. And when I look around and I see federal policy, state policy, city policy, and local policy, I don't see references to the overdose epidemic. I don't hear it. It's starting to fade away and become, my fear is it just becomes a condition of society that we come to accept. It doesn't have to be that way. We can defeat it. It has to be defeated on a prevention level, not on a treatment level. Treatment needs to be available for folks and families. But we need to prevent it from ever happening. That's how we will gain control over it and defeat it. And if you look deep into where taxpayer dollars are spent, it's not in those areas. Let me give you an example of how deprioritized this problem is. On Staten Island, I'm in the process of opening 3 new programs, 3 residential programs, one for men, called reintegration. That is, they go from treatment into a sort of a halfway house. They're monitored. They're expected to engage in employment, find themselves permanent housing, develop a network of positive friends. And I don't mean on the computer. I mean actual. All right, so that's one. We're very close to opening a 30-bed residence for women on Staten Island. Probably be open April, May of this year. And the Attorney General will be invited to be there to cut the ribbon. The third one we're working on, which is just in the very early stages, will be a first and only for Staten Island. It's 25 women with a capacity for 22 children. Because one of the reasons that women don't come for treatment is they don't want to be separated from their children and they don't want to lose their children. So we're setting it up so that we'll take care of the kids and the children and hopefully, break the cycle of addiction. Now, here's the last point I'll make because they'll be pulling the plug on me in a minute. The last point I'll make, COVID hit us. COVID hit us. What did we do? We took the Javits Center overnight, intensive care beds, hospital ship at our shores, Central Park, tents. That's when we take it seriously. When I say we, I mean our government and us as individuals. When we take it seriously, we use all our intellectual, technical, and financial capability to grab hold of it and keep it from destroying us. Okay. The 30-bed women's program that will be opening this year has been in design and renovation for over a decade. Over a decade. How many lives could we intervened? Could we maybe have redirected? Maybe have even saved if that could have been opened in, say, a year's time? I mean, the Empire State Building only took 18 months to build, and it was 3 months ahead of time. There's 102 stories. Why does it take 10 years to open that residential program? The next one is the men's program, reintegration. That's 8 years in the process, and the women's and children's, that's 6 years in the process. And if it would have been attended to on a priority level, and the priority is this simple. Oh, it's on the bottom of the pile today, put it on the top of the pile tomorrow. It not only would have gotten open faster, redirected lives, saved lives, but it would have saved money. Because the longer it takes to do this, the more expensive it is. And when it's more expensive and the government backs off and says, wait a minute, it's more expensive than it should have been, then a battle ensues. This is my specific area. And if it wasn't for the Attorney General, James, we wouldn't be getting this kind of publicity. We didn't get it. We didn't get it. On a federal level, we didn't get it on a state level. We're not seeing it on a city level. We're not seeing it on the local level. Where is this money going? How will it be spent? And what system of accountability will it be? Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Luke. And our last speaker is Janelle Doris, the CEO of Start Care. For over 55 years, Start Care has been leading the way, delivering care to some of New York City's most vulnerable neighborhoods, specializing in addiction recovery, mental health support, and research. And Start Care serves 3,000 to 4,000 patients every year in need of treatment of opioid addiction. Also, on a personal note, I've known Janelle for a long time. He is a minister, and I've been to his church to hear him give wonderful sermons. And it doesn't surprise me that he is now CEO of this wonderful organization. Janelle.
thank you so much to our Attorney General. As mentioned, my name is John L. Doris. I am CEO of Start Cure, formerly Start Treatment and Recovery Centers, a 55-year-old behavioral health and research agency providing comprehensive, integrated, and life-changing health care to almost 3,000 to 4,000 New Yorkers impacted by the opioid and mental health crisis at 6 sites in New York City. Thank you to our Attorney General for your continued commitment to individuals, families, and communities who have suffered tremendously as a result of the opioid epidemic. You have been a relentless champion to those impacted by this crisis, bringing much needed resources, support for opioid addiction treatment and prevention services, as well as supporting the much needed innovative research to improve care and outcomes to this marginalized and disconnected group of New Yorkers. With this announcement, an additional $250 million will be added to the already just about $3 billion settlement funding secured for New York families, communities, and service providers like Start Care. As we continue to see historic overdose deaths among young and adults, widening racial disparities, and increased prevalence of co-occurrent substance use and mental health disorders, this funding will greatly support community-based healthcare providers like Start Care and Luke's organization, who are at the forefront serving the marginalized demographic that evidence some of the most challenging health outcomes with respect to mental health, substance use, overdose death, and chronic disease, as well as other health and social related challenges. The funding allows Start Care to continue to take an evidence-based, holistic, integrated, person-centered approach to address the needs of our participants, focusing on the social determinants of health, such as housing and food insecurity, economic opportunity, and healthcare access as part of our treatment and prevention philosophy. Through settlement funding, our organization, the existing settlement funding, our organization has already received resources to stand up new comprehensive outpatient programs, which boost our mental health offerings, as well as make available harm reduction supports like naloxone kits and fentanyl and xylazine test strips, and harm reduction training for community members and our participants alike. With additional settlement dollars, organizations like Start Care can effectively enhance service offerings and innovate to new treatment delivery options, such as mobile medication units, community-based outreach and engagement, and other preventive services and strategies that meet people right where they are. These settlement dollars would also help organizations like Start Care continue to advance health equity by funding critical research on reducing stigma and barriers to treatment engagement, youth-focused prevention initiatives, and the development of innovative treatment for substance use disorders for those who are marginalized and need it the most. Most importantly, these dollars would help us to continue to create community, restore hope, improve health, and ultimately save lives of people who desperately struggle with opioid use disorder and other health challenges. Again, we thank our Attorney General and all of the warriors here who've been fighting for 5+ years to get this done. We certainly thank you for this announcement today and look forward to continue working with you all.
Thank you, Pastor. Again, I want to announce all of the staff members who were obviously very much involved in reaching the settlement here today, who work day and night, and if they could stand so their loved ones can see them on TV. First Deputy Attorney General Jennifer Levy. Special Counsel David Nachman, and we should really give him a round of applause because he was a true champion. Special Advisor and Special Counsel Umair Khan. Where's Umair? Is Andrew Amer here? Andrew's not here. Okay. Gina. Is Gina Bull? No? Okay. I don't see Colleen either. Gary Fishman. Don't see Gary. I guess they're working on something else. Martin Mooney. Don't see Martin. Don't see Noah. Noah. Noah Pope, and Robert Rock, Jennifer Simkovich, Eva Wooden, as well as Ken Morales. There you go. Victoria Khan, yay. Blake Ruby and Labiba, yes. Thank you. And Labiba Hassan. I'm sure the others are working on other initiatives in this office, and particularly initiative, which I'll speak to after we take on topic questions only.
Attorney General, what is to assure that this money becomes reality, given that prior settlements, which sound great in headlines, either get held up in court or delayed in a government entity? And 7.4 billion sounds like something, but what is to assure that this actually is real?
That's a great question. It's $7.4 billion for all of the states that are involved. In addition to that, $250 million will go to the state of New York. In total, we have secured $3 billion as a result of all of our litigation against pharmaceutical companies and drug manufacturers, et cetera. In this particular case, if the Sacklers and Purdue do not pay the amount of money, 6.5 from the Sacklers themselves and $900 million from Purdue, we are prepared again to use every tool at our disposal to seek litigation. But we are confident that at the end of the day, given all of the individuals who are around the table, given the handshakes, given the fact that the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed, we anticipate that this deal will come into fruition, and that those funds will be used again for treatment, for prevention, and for education.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yes.
It was the federal government last time that helped gum up the works. We have a different federal government.
So that was not my comment. That was someone else's. But at the end of the day, I believe it was the bankruptcy court that objected to certain language in our agreement that basically protected the Sacklers. That language has been removed. And so as a result of that, I'm confident that this agreement will come into fruition. Hi. So as you know, as a result of our first settlement, the legislature, working with our office, created a lockbox. And those funds, all of the funds from all of the litigation that we have secured were placed into the lockbox for all of the items that I just mentioned, prevention, education, for beds, et cetera. And as I speak to organizations on the ground, such as Camelot, et cetera, there's a lot of bureaucracy involved, and there's not a lot of transparency. So I'm urging OASIS, again, to get those funds out the door as soon as possible. There is still a great need. Yes, opioid deaths are down, just slightly, but we can do obviously more, again, to stem the tide of the opioid crisis that we are seeing all throughout the state of New York, and particularly in those counties in upstate New York that are struggling right now. So I'm urging OASIS, again, to work with our office to expedite those funds. These funds will not be in this year's budget. We anticipate that they will be in next year's budget, the $250 million. And again, we will be monitoring the situation. And I hope, again, I don't continue to hear the same complaints that I'm hearing from organizations, CBOs, NGOs, all throughout the state of New York with respect to all of the bureaucracy that is involved.
Attorney General, I'd like to ask you what specific language was removed to satisfy the bankruptcy court, and I'd also like to ask you about President Trump's civil rights and what steps your office is taking to supplement him pulling out in that
So on the second question, I'll respond to that after this is over. In regards to the first situation, there was, as you know, in the first settlement, there was protection around the Sacklers to prevent individuals from filing additional litigation against them. That has been removed. And so there are individuals who, if for whatever reason, refuse to sign this agreement, if they seek to file a lawsuit against the Sacklers, they can move forward with respect to that litigation. There is no longer that language in there that protects the Sacklers.
Let me just follow up. What litigation specifically was resolved?
So there was currently litigation. As you know, we filed litigation on Long Island against the Sacklers and Purdue. That litigation is now no more because of this settlement. In addition to that, the last settlement, which was thrown out by the United States Supreme Court, in that particular litigation in Supreme Court, again, there was language protecting the Sacklers. There was it was $5.5 billion. In this particular case, we've secured more money, and we have removed that protective language against the Sacklers. So it's based on allocation. We'll have the individuals reach out to you. It's based on a formula, and the $250 million was based on an allocation against amongst the creditors, amongst the attorneys general, and amongst individuals that have come up with the sum of monies for New York State. But again, in total, we have secured $3 billion based upon all of the litigation that we have entered into. And specifically, I can give you the staff can give you a rundown, but it includes $1.1 billion from McKesson, Cardinal Health, AmerisourceBergen, three of the nation's largest drug distributors, $523 million from Teva, $458.2 million from CVS and Walgreens, $250 million, as was just announced today, from Purdue and the Sacklers, $230 million from J&J, Johnson & Johnson, $200 from Allergan, $116 million from Walmart, $58.5 million from Mallinckrodt, $50 million from Endo Health Solutions, $32 million from McKinsey, and our work is not done. Oh, okay. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'll read a statement. This is a statement regarding the mass deportation orders. So I just want to briefly address the mass deportation orders that we have been reviewing along with other Democratic attorneys general all across this nation. As most of you know, we have been preparing for this moment for some time, which is why there was a quick response to the birthright citizenship executive order. We filed within hours. And there are other announcements that have been coming from Washington regarding immigration issues. And it is well established through longstanding Supreme Court precedent that the United States Constitution prevents the federal government from commandeering states to enforce federal laws. Let me say that again. The United States Constitution prevents the federal government from commandeering states to enforce federal laws. And while the federal government may use its own resources for federal immigration enforcement, the court ruled in Prince, P-R-I-N-T-Z, versus the United States, that the federal government cannot impress into its service and at no cost to itself the police officers of the 50 states. The balance of power between the federal government and state government is a touchstone of our American system of federalism. And the president cannot unilaterally rewrite the Constitution. As New York State's Attorney General, I will enforce our state's law, and I'll be not distracted by all of the noise that's coming from Washington, D.C., and will not sit idly by while the Constitution is being undermined. Again, we are not individuals who are the face of resistance. We are willing to work with the office of President Trump, but when it comes to any violation of the United States Constitution or the Constitution of the state of New York or the rights of vulnerable or marginalized populations, including but not limited to the immigrant communities, we will enforce the law. Thank you so much.
The civil rights